Sometimes you need to take a page from the classics, like that old, eminently quotable stock sage Ben Franklin, who said, in this world, nothing is certain but death and taxes. That's some timeless wisdom. And while it's hard to profit from taxation, especially with H&R Block behaving like such a dog lately, despite the fact that this is the best time of year, the reality is that morbid as it sounds, death is another story. If you're feeling existential and you want to play on the inevitability of death, allow me to introduce you to Service Corporation International, SCI. It's the single largest player in the so-called death care space, meaning they're the #1 operator of funeral homes and cemeteries, with over 1,500 of the former and nearly 500 of the latter across the United States and Canada. Service Corporation International has a gigantic 16% market share in the industry, which is enormous when you consider this is a highly fragmented business where small independent players still control 79% of the market. Add up these numbers, and it tells you that all the other large consolidators in the group combined add up to just 5% in the funeral home and cemetery industry, which means that SCI is indeed in a league of its own. Now, this company has a long history of making acquisitions in order to mop up the competition. It's consistently allowed SCI stock to put up some incredible numbers. Even it's pulled back a little bit this year. It's down 6% today, but boy, it's clobbered the S&P. Some of that's because the company took on a lot of debt, nearly $3.2 billion in total. They're actively restructuring the balance sheet right now so that they can postpone some major debt maturities without a problem. Some of the recent weakness is because when SCI reported its latest quarter in mid-February, the top and bottom line numbers came in slightly below expectations, even though the full-year guidance is pretty solid. So is it worth betting on the death care industry with this stock? Let's check in with Tom Ryan. He's the chairman and CEO of Service Corporation International. Find out more about how his company's doing and where it's headed. Mr. Ryan, welcome to Mad Money.
Hey, Jim.
Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. Yeah, thanks.
Tom, I got to tell you, Service Corp is one of these stocks when I was at Goldman Sachs. I'm talking about a long, long time ago. Everyone always said it's a growth company, and it's still a growth company. So how is it possible, even though, I mean, obviously, because of baby boomers' death, but this has been a consistent grower over time. Is it because people want to sell their funeral parlors and cemeteries to you, or because you just have a good cash flow? What's the secret?
I mean, Jim, I think what's happened is these businesses are generational. You know, been in family businesses, for generations coming at a time. So they're ready for sale when the sellers are ready to sell them. You know, we don't try to force that transaction to occur. We want to buy them right. But I think what we try to do is create a culture where we create opportunities for the employees of the company. We create opportunities for the former owners to stay involved. And so, again, we're going to grow the business along those lines over time and invest the capital wisely. And if not, we're going to buy back shares and shrink the equity.
Well, you 40% of this, you've bought back a huge amount of stock over the years.
We have. You know, it's a great cash business, right. Particularly the funeral business. You know, they're separately regulated. The funeral business, again, is a steady cash flow, but it's dependent upon the number of deaths that occur in a year. So you're not going to get a lot of growth on that side of the business. Cemetery business is different. We can sell cemetery property, recognize the revenues today, and the cash flow goes in our pocket today. So that's what's really generated a lot of the organic growth and allowed us to deploy the cash wisely to, again, shrink that equity base over time.
Tom, it doesn't matter what race, what religion, creed, nothing, right? I mean, you've been able to do, how can you do that? How can one company be able to handle all the different kinds of services that you need to get?
It takes a lot of learning, Jim. So we've got a platform called Dignity University, which distributes our strategy. So a lot of people think the funeral businesses, one is like the other, but they're very different. It's probably the only business I know that today, even the federal government would say this, is divided ethnically and divided in, again, to customs and traditions along religious lines. So, for instance, in Southern California, we've got a big Vietnamese business, and you've got to know with that Vietnamese population, they want a room for 3 to 5 days. They're going to stay there 24 hours with the deceased. They're going to pray. They're going to want to eat. Not every funeral home's geared to do that. So we can take that knowledge, and where there's another large Vietnamese population, just so happens in Houston, we can outfit our funeral homes and our cemeteries to match their desires and needs.
Geez, now how's it changed over the years? How's it changed with the internet?
It's changed a lot, but it's a little bit like, you think about the car business. People shop and look at a lot of information on the internet and try to learn, but at the end of the day, they kind of want somebody sitting across from them, talking them through that tough time. You mentioned before, this is normally the worst day of a lot of people's lives, and our job is to try to make it easier and better.
Now, just to get so people understand, because it's the first time we've been talking, funeral has very different growth patterns than cemetery, but both are strong. Market share, you're stronger in one than the other, but that can change?
That can change. What it is there's probably, I think there's 22,000 funeral homes in Canada and the United States.
Right.
There's probably 4,000 for-profit cemeteries. So it's a much more distributed business than the funeral business. There's 120 cases per funeral home, if you think about that in the United States today. It's not a very efficient business. It's every third day you're providing a funeral. Now, the way it really works is you'll have 2 today and then you won't have 1 for 5. And it varies across the country. But the funeral business, the barriers to entry are very different. Cemeteries, there's not a lot of new ones, Jim, being built.
Wow. I gotta tell you, well, this has been a strong stock, and I urge people to read the presentation. It's really beaten the S&P continually, and its growth rate's accelerating. That's Tom Ryan, Chairman and CEO of Service Corporation of International. And many of you have asked about Service Corporation International, and I told you I like it. Now we've heard it from the boss. Stay with Cramer. Booyah! Jim Cramer here from Mad Money. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube. Click here to subscribe and get the jump on my exclusives with CEOs, plus market news, investing advice, and a whole lot more.